secure and safe. And that is a mandate we are going to discharge without fear or favor. So the propaganda out there will not discourage us. They can continue threatening us that so and so will go to ICC, so and so will go to court. That has no implications at all in terms of our commitment. We have a duty to serve our beautiful country, colleagues. We cannot allow what is happening in the neighborhood. We know what is happening in the neighboring countries. We are not going to allow that to happen to our country. We have no spare country. This is the country we are given by God, and we are going to protect it jealously. Kwa hivyo ambaye ako kule nje anafikiria tatisha polisi, anajidanganya. Kuna wengine tumesikia akitisha ati hivi karibuni tutaenda kwa barabara kuharibu mali, kuharibu biashara za watu. Unajidanganya. We are going to deal with you firmly and decisively.
Now, in response to that, Azimio leader Raila Odinga blasted the Inspector General of Police Japheth Koome over those claims that the opposition hired dead bodies to represent victims of police brutality. Raila said the bodies in question had gunshot wounds and death certificates to prove the cause of death. This came just a few hours after the police IG Japheth Koome made claims that senior members of the society have been parading bodies to implicate police officers as being behind the killings.
Meeting also took place against the background of a running somber mood across different parts of the country, occasioned by police brutality. If you want to know how brutal and murderous our security forces were in the protests, you have to pay attention to the burials that are taking place across Kenya. You have all attended some, and we will be attending some more. Confirm that police killed and wounded many Kenyans. It should never have happened. It should never have happened again. And more importantly, we will do whatever it takes to ensure justice for the victims. We will ensure the perpetrators of these crimes pay. And it is actually very disappointing to see a statement from Inspector General of Police, Mr. Koome, saying that we hired dead bodies to accuse police of brutality. I don't know in which world he lives, because the bodies we've been burying have bullet wounds on them. And death certificates confirming the cause of death. One was whose neck was just chopped off in Sondo. Another one was a victim of arrow attack. So these are real deaths of human beings killed by Mr. Koome's goons, masquerading as police officers.
So something big politically will be happening today, where the opposition has announced that it is ready for the scheduled talks with the government on Wednesday at 11 a.m. at the Bomas of Kenya. The Azimio leader Raila Odinga has reiterated that the team led by former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka will focus on the issues raised. Issues the opposition expects to be addressed include the high cost of living, audit of the 2022 August elections, governance issues, and the boundaries delimitation. Azimio la Umoja had called off the demonstrations after holding one-on-one talks between President William Ruto and Raila Odinga.
Here to announce that we are ready. We are particularly ready to return to Bomas of Kenya. We continue regarding Bomas of Kenya as a sacred ground when it comes to the quest for reform, change, and national healing. Our team remains as previously announced. The issues for discussion from our side remain: 1. Cost of living. 2. Audit of the 2022 presidential election results. 3. Restructuring and reconstitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission and related matters. 4. Measures to prevent interference with political parties. 5. Outstanding constitutional matters, that is, governance issues, adequate checks and balances, and the question of boundaries delimitation. As we said earlier, the team we have picked reflects the importance we attach to these talks. We picked the team with a full understanding that the country is on a wrong trajectory. Anyone who thinks otherwise is being delusional.
Milk production will be doubled in the next 5 years to expand opportunity for farmers. President William Ruto said the government has put in place a solid plan that will see production increase from 5.2 billion litres to 10 billion litres a year. He argued that milk is one of the highest influencers of income in Kenya, generating at least 200 billion shillings a year. He explained that the government will modernize the Kenya Cooperative Creameries (KCC) plants and install milk coolers countrywide so that more milk can be processed. The president noted farmers will be at the center and front in the new plan to give the sector a new lease of life.
The reforms have begun in earnest, and you have heard when the price of 50 shillings is mentioned, there are some mamas at the back. Is that so? Because when KCC pays 50, the cooperative societies deduct too much money than what is required. And as a result, Your Excellency, we are planning the daily conference in Nakuru in early September, and one of the issues to be discussed is the Cooperative Act and the amendments that will be done to that act.
Mimi najua ya kwamba bado tuko na safari katika hii program ya mambo ya maziwa. Na ndio mkiona katika manifesto yetu tumekubaliana ya kwamba ndani ya miaka 5 tunataka kuongeza maziwa tunayozalisha kama taifa kutoka lita bilioni 5.2 mpaka lita bilioni 10. That is our plan in the next 5 years, to increase milk production in Kenya from 5.2 billion liters to 10 billion liters. Maziwa inatupatia karibu bilioni 200 kila mwaka. In fact, it is among the highest influencers of our incomes as a nation. Maziwa ambayo inafanywa processing, maziwa ambayo inauzwa bado haijafanywa processing, na tunazidi na kutafuta mbinu na namna ya kuhakikisha kwamba we do more processing of our milk, do less sale of raw milk, because by doing more processing, we add more value and farmers get a better pay for their milk.
All right, so let's take a look at what is making headlines across the newspapers. I've got the Daily Nation, the Standard, and the Star. Quite interesting issues that have been headlined. 365, actually 66 days later, when Kenyans walked to various polling stations to cast their ballot. And that is the conversation that we are focusing on this morning. So we'll kick it off with the Standard. 1 year later, on August 9th, 2022, Kenyans trooped to polling stations and made their intent known. The battle was between hustlers and the elites, between a bottom-up economic model where subsidies will only be awarded to production. A year later, we begin to look at the promises made versus the reality on the ground. The picture there of President William Ruto, who at that time voted at the Kosache Primary School in Sugoi, and about 7.1 million people voted President William Ruto in. Pledges versus reality, political front, the making of a monolithic party and clamping down on opposition. Is the country still in campaign mode? Economy, they said they inherited a battered economy 1 year after elections. Have things become better or worse? On agriculture, government has delivered on its pledge to distribute affordable fertilizer. However, it is one of many farming inputs. Opposition, Azimio has resorted to street protests as a way of driving home their point. Education, government intends to implement radical proposals that will change the sector significantly. So these are stories that are on page 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the Standard this morning. Page 2, 3, 4, and 5. Of the Standard this morning. Bid to make UDA monolith party as Ruto flexes political muscle. We've heard of the intent, at least, of making UDA a vast party across the country such that there will be no competition for that particular party. So it is a question of wait and see, as we've witnessed over the election period where parties are formed or coalitions at least are formed within the election time, but 1 year, 2 years later, there's no name to it, or there's no members to it. It's just but a name. So 1 year after elections, leaders struck in perpetual campaign mode. What we're seeing is president on top of vans or on top of cars addressing various residents. And that was exactly the same situation we saw as well during the campaign period. So Ruto has been in Mount Kenya region addressing gatherings after touring several counties. On the other hand, Azimio has kept the tempo high with anti-government demos and endless demands. Now, President William Ruto has termed his visits development tours to launch government projects, but his messaging has been heavier on the politics of the day. Besides justifying his policies and selling his government intentions, promises synonymous with campaigns, Ruto has led government functionaries in castigating the opposition for calling demonstrations over the high cost of living. This events that are called Thanksgiving services. We've seen them across almost all the counties that had a UDA governor elected. Now, to them, it is unfortunate that Azimio la Umoja One Kenya has not moved on from last year's presidential election loss and is playing needless politics, coaching election grievances behind protests over the high cost of living. 1 year after elections, Hope as cabinet shelves plans to privatize 6 sugar factories. A big move that will be a huge relief to sugar factories. And 1 year after elections, residents in the South Rift wait for Ruto to keep word on projects. So what are some of the promises that the president made to South Rift counties? To Eldoret, he promised the upgrading of the Kap Katet Stadium, the construction of Kapsoit, Sosiot, and Sondu Road. To Kericho County, he made the promise of affordable housing of 10,000 units, and roads and construction of roads, which include Kericho, Ainamoi, Forte, Tenana, Nandi Hill Road. To Baringo County, he made the promise of taming rampant insecurity, Radat, Amaya, and Baragay dams construction, as well as affordable housing between 5,000 to 10,000 units. To Nakuru County, he made the promise of revival of the Itare Dam, affordable houses of 20,000 units, Egerton Agricultural Park, as well as Naivasha Industrial Park. And then to Nyandarua County, he made the promise of construction of the Olkalu potato processing plant, the distribution of 35 milk cooling facilities, water provision. Only 3 boreholes are completed in the engineer town. So 365 days later, you can have a say on what are some of these issues that the government has done fantastic on, and what are some of the issues that seem to have been ignored from the government's point of view. Top of the page of the Standard as well. Journalists account day Nairobi skies were darkened. That is with regards to the 1998 August 7th bombing. Journalists account day Nairobi skies were darkened. That is a story that is on page 6 and page 7 as the country marks 25 years later since the August 7th bombing, to which over 200 lives were lost. And the compensation please continue. Cabinet shifts plan on sugar companies. Like I've said, the privatization of sugar companies are no longer on the table as the cabinet has resolved not to, as well as Manchester City still the team to beat as English Premier League kicks off just this week. The Star newspaper, endless war, Ruto, Raila in combat 1 year on. Supremacy. On a day like this, 1 year ago, the two faced off in a hotly contested poll. And 12 months later, after polls, Kenya remains in an perpetual election mood. 1 year on, Ruto and Raila cannot agree on the final poll results. 1 year later on, there are no IEBC commissioners in place. 1 year later on, process to replace Chebukati team stalled. The Cherera 4 forced out without pay, one now in exile. IBC evaluation report yet to be implemented. Some opposition governors and MPs have joined government, as perhaps is to be expected, particularly after your side loses elections. So the Star has done quite an analysis of some of the key dates since the last election. Immediately after Kenyans voted on August of 9th, 2022, on 15th, Chebukati declared Ruto president-elect. On 15th still, 4 commissioners disowned the presidential election result, including the Julius Cherera, or the vice chairperson Julius Cherera. On 22nd, Raila and Karua challenged Ruto win at the Supreme Court. On 9th of September, or 5th of September, Supreme Court upholds Ruto's win. About 7 days later, Ruto is sworn in as President of the Republic of Kenya. On January 1st, 2023, Azimio says it has new evidence of election rigging. On 12th of March, 2023, Raila calls for protest march to State House. On 21st of March, Raila announces demos on Mondays and Thursdays. On 2nd of April, Raila calls off demos after Ruto agreed to the bipartisan talks that failed. On 19th of July, Azimio resumes demos over Finance Bill 2023. And then on 29th of July 2023, Obasanjo, the former Nigerian president, brokers talks between Raila and Ruto. So quite a lot of things have happened over the past 365 days, but it is key to note that it is an ending feud. Ruto, Raila still locked in a combat 1 year later on. Still top of the page of the Star, cost of living, high prices of onions leave customers with teary eyes. Peeling onions can bring tears to one's eyes, but now most of Kenyans have to contend with teary eyes as they shop for the vegetable. Prices have tripled in just less than 2 months, forcing wholesalers, retailers, and customers to drastically adjust their budgets. And I know that you have experienced this price of onion. Senate inquest, City Hall under scrutiny over pending bills, huge bank loans. And top of the page, transfer of judge who suspended Finance Act draws mixed reaction. Mugure Thande, the High Court judge who ruled on the suspension of the Finance Act 2023, has been transferred to the Malindi courts. Not just her, but 12 more judges. So in total, 13 judges were transferred from various courts to other courts. Now, the Daily Nation. How juniors bagged 600,000 each per month in allowances. How juniors bagged 600,000 each per month in allowances. Salaries Commission has faced tough resistance in a bid to control fat packs. Listen to this. Some 21 employees of the Department of Public Works each pocketed 617,000 Kenyan shillings monthly, which is basically 20,000 shillings on a day-to-day basis, assuming they worked 365 days to collectively draw 155.5 million annually in travel packs. The amount is nearly 20% of the entire department's wage bill. Now, they drew this just as allowances. Mind you, they've got their own salaries aside. So that is a story that is on page 7. And that was revealed by the Auditor General Nancy Gathungu. Now, Gadhungu faults the department charged with improving living and working conditions in government buildings, developing and maintaining coastline infrastructure and pedestrian access, procuring common user items, and review of both development and recurrent cash books revealed 155 million shillings was paid during the year to 21 members of staff relating to Impress for domestic travel and subsistence. That is quite the story that has been revealed by the Auditor General. Just shows the level of perhaps priorities that we have as a nation. Back to Bomas, where it began. Today, representatives of President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga converge for talks to end a lingering post-election crisis at a venue where 1 year ago the warring factions scuffled prior to the declaration of poll results following a tight presidential contest. The dispute has persisted since. So we expect that the two teams will be meeting today. First, they have to agree on the order or the issues to be discussed. After that is when they can start the actual discussion. So initially they didn't agree because of various issues. You know, the government does not want to have a conversation on the high cost of living. The opposition does want to have that conversation. And so those, you know, dividing factors are some of the issues that we'll be looking out for to see whether or not the talks will finally be able to take place, even as the Azimio leader has said, come September, because they'd given a 1 month duration. If the talks do not, you know, start or do not give or cannot bear fruits, it is back to the streets. So back to Bomas, where it all began. Judge who blocked route access twice moved to Malindi, that is Mugure Thande. Cabinet abandons plans to sell 6 state sugar millers, as well as fury over Kome's protest death claims. Police Chief Japheth Kome claims bodies paraded in morgues were not victims of police killings, but opposition leaders term his allegation outrageous and insensitive to grieving families, as the IG said, you know what, Azimio hired dead bodies. Well, that is a story that is on page 6 of the Daily Nation, and those are the stories making headlines across the country. The Star, endless war, Ruto Raila in combat 1 year on. The Standard, 1 year later, that is after the August 9th, 2022 general elections, 365 days in between, so much has happened. As well as the Daily Nation, how juniors bagged 600,000 shillings each per month in allowances. Those are the news stories. So we take a quick break, but when we come back, we've got quite an interesting conversation coming up, effective parenting. And this is not just for parents, also to ye that would love to be parents or are in the process of becoming parents. These are some of the conversations that you need to, listen in for. So we've got our guest in studio, Vic Otieno, a counseling psychologist, who will be joining me shortly after the break so that we can have a conversation on effective parenting. What is it? Are there rules around parenting? What do we say is good parenting? What do we say is bad parenting? So that conversation coming up next. Start sending in your thoughts. Our SMS line is open 23993. Also watch us on Facebook and on YouTube. Leave a comment. Tell us where you are watching us from. After the break, we'll be sampling your feedback as well as getting into that conversation. Stay with Morning Live.
The International Faith Summit.
The International Faith Summit.
The International Faith Summit. The International Faith Summit 2023.
The International Faith Summit.
Hi, I'm Jadida Deti.
My name is Pastor Crispus Masangu.
My name is Nanjala Kitondo. I attended the previous
Faith Summit here at Blessed Hope Center.
and I can testify that my faith was built and made better.
And it really blessed me. It changed my life.
And I was blessed. I was so much blessed.
I like the way ministers of God prepared themselves, the way every department was ministered upon.
I invite you to this year's International Faith Summit.
This year we'll be hosting it bigger and better.
It will be bigger, and we are having great preachers from within Kenya and from abroad, from the US, from the South African part, from many areas. And I believe it will be a blessing to you too.
Wherever you are, we welcome you in the name of Jesus.
And I'm looking forward for this year International Faith Summit to lift my life to other level.
Invite your friends,
Ministers of God, men and women,
and your relatives.
I hope you'll be present.
Come, and your life
Will not be the same again.
your life will never be the same again.
It will be from the 14th to 18th.
of August 2023.
God bless you.
God bless you.
God bless you.
Through the morning rush and the buzz. Find a voice you can trust, a voice of reason, a voice of direction, and a voice of hope.
Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Live. I'm Cynthia Nanjala.
And I'm Samia Dika, Rise and Shine folks. We hope you are ready for an energizing start to your day.
Absolutely. We are here to bring you the latest headlines and trending news stories from the world of politics,
Business and finance, health and lifestyle.
agriculture, and sports.
So grab your coffee, sit back and get ready for a fantastic morning of engaging discussions and news segments.
Join us through our social media handles, hashtag The Morning Live. This is Morning Live, exclusively on EBN TV.
In a fast-paced world filled with distractions, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters: your relationship with God. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we take you on a transformative journey of building your faith, without which it's impossible to please God. A journey of introspection and discovery of who you are in Christ Jesus.
For you to walk with God, you should not crumble when you come under pressure. Kama umeokoka, sema umeokoka mpaka mbele ya president, mpaka mbele ya chief justice, mpaka mbele ya kila mtu. Hiyo ndio kuokoka ya ukweli. Kuokoka ya ukweli.
Enjoy a faith-filled environment of worship and ministry of the Word every Tuesday and Thursdays from 9 a.m. with Reverend Felix Kevoy, exclusively on EBN TV.
That is the word of the Lord today.
Well, good morning and welcome back. Thank you for staying with Morning Live. It is about 37 minutes past the hour mark, and we'd love to get into the conversation of the day this morning, effective parenting. Now, being a parent can be so challenging, but good as well at the same time. But it's also a question on how do you raise your child to ensure that you're giving them the skills that they require to deal with the world, as well as when you release them to the world after they've turned 18, which is the ultimate adult age in Kenya. Are they able to adapt to the situations around them? It's at that point that the character of the child now comes up, and you're able to know who is good and who is bad. It all falls down to parenting. And so that is the conversation of the day, effective parenting. My guest is already in studio, Vic Otieno, a counseling psychologist. Thank you so much, sir, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
And feel at home.
Thank you.
It's been quite a while. How is Uganda?
I'm in Nairobi now.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So good to have you. Yeah. And, this is such a very complex topic, but sounds so simple, but it's such a complex topic as well at the same time. Because I came across someone who says good parents have the most difficult time in raising their children. And I was like, what do you mean good parents? Everyone is a parent. Perhaps we can also talk about the good parenting, the bad parenting and all that. But effective parenting, the moment you say this to somebody, what exactly do you mean? Maybe we can start by describing what effective parenting means.
Effective parenting is I'd call it a style of parenting in which a child will feel all their needs have been met, but also you as a parent, you are able to bring up a child who is responsible, It will take us to different types of parenting. We have about 4 common types of parenting.
Okay.
So some of these styles will lead us, to what we now call effective parenting.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when we talk of effective parenting, does it mean that is ineffective parenting?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
When you look at our society, you will know that some people are not parented well.
Yeah. How so? Yeah, how so?
You see, what do you call it? Manners of children you meet around. It all boils back to the parent. Even adults. It's to do with something. It's something to do with how we were brought up, how we behave as adults, how we behave as people at the workplace.
Yeah.
It's back to how you are parenting. You are parented. You have heard this saying, Swahili, is it saying as you've
funzwa na mamae or funzwa na ulimwengu?
Something like that.
Yeah.
So even the people who came up with that saying believed that the way somebody is parented has everything to do with how they end up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Great. So at the start you mentioned about, there are styles of parenting, there are types of parenting.
Yeah.
So perhaps if you could take us through these styles and these types, and why do we have to categorize parenting? It should be such a general thing. It's just you raising your child, but why are we categorizing it? And then perhaps you can also tell us what these 4 types of parenting are and describe how it looks like eventually.
Yeah, yes, you see, just like personality, there's a way you approach parenting, parent A from parent B. You will find some parents who allow their children to do anything. You will find some parents whose children are accountable. You will find somebody whose children can insult adults, So, and that is the style we are now talking about. Now, majorly, we have 4 major parenting styles. First is permissive. Permissive parent. A permissive parent, they allow the child to do anything the child wants. It's about pleasing the child. It's about being a friend to the child. They do not want to cross the child at all. So whatever the child wants, a child can say, I want pizza at 11 p.m. Someone will go and get it because the child has said. So it's permissive. They want to please the child. Okay? Basically, that is it. So you find that the needs of the child rule than the expectation of the parent. The needs of the child rules. Second,
before we move to the second one, is that connected to perhaps the psychological part of the parent, where they feel the need to give this child everything they want? Is it connected psychologically?
Definitely, it's psychological, and I've had this many times. You've had parents, I'm sure, saying that I went through trouble, my parent was too strict, my child will not have to go through what I'm going through, you know.
Yeah.
So it's psychological. And because of that, children reign, their needs reign. Whatever they want, they are given, you know. So we call that permissive. I said the needs of the child comes first.
Yeah.
The parents' expectation don't feature anywhere.
All right.
Now, second style is unresponsive. Unresponsive, or you can call them neglectful parents.
Yeah.
They don't respond to any need of the child. They basically neglect the child, like I've said the name. Now, feature with this is many times the parents themselves are dealing with something. Maybe alcoholism, maybe depression. So as a result, the needs of the child are not taken care of at all. So basically the child is bringing up themselves. Okay, the parent is not there. There is no parental input. Then we have authoritative parenting. Now, authoritative parenting is where the child's needs are listened to, but also there is demands from the parents that are also met. Yeah, it's a balance between the two.
The child and the parent.
Yes, so the parent will communicate their expectation. The child is also free to give their input. They are also able to say what they feel, what they need, and the parent meet those needs. Okay, so we call it the balancing one, the authoritative. And then the last style is the authoritarian. Authoritarian, what some people can call dictatorial.
Yeah.
So with authoritarian parenting, all the rules, the communication is from the parent. Okay. So the parent says, and the child is not supposed to question. The parent does not expect any feedback from the child. Okay, so the parent is the one communicating. Problem is, the child might feel abused. The child might feel like he's being suffocated, you know. Yeah. So those are the major styles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From actually what you've explained, it sounds as though parenting is not just about parents.
Yeah.
It's also about the child, how the child behaves. Because, for instance, if you look at the authoritative parenting, it goes both ways. The child puts up their demands, the parent also puts up their demands.
Yeah.
So just to make it clear, parenting is not just about me raising that child, it's also about the child themselves.
Yes, balanced parenting, the child's needs must be taken care of. A child will tell you, let's give you an example. A child will tell you, hey, I want to go to a new school. Okay? Now, if you are the parent whose word is law, you will dismiss the child, and probably the child is being abused in that school. And because you will not take time to go, to find out what's happening, a child might be undergoing abuse. We have had children abused even sexually, but because they can't speak to the parents, it continues forever and ever under the watch of the parent.
Yeah.
So it is important that you listen to your child. Okay. By the way, even the four styles we have mentioned about, it doesn't have to be that you will be one type of parent forever. There is a time that you will find that even the permissive parent will have to be authoritarian. Okay. Let's say you like letting your child have his way, but now you want to cross the road. At that level, you will say, hey, you are holding my hand. I'm holding your hand whether you like it or not. That way you have moved a little bit. So it can't just say that, okay, I'm this type of parent, so I can't move. It has to be this way. No. Sometimes we'll have to shift. Yeah.
All right. So I'd love to use it as my crystal ball. I'd love to go through each type of parenting and just the effect it has on the child.
Yes.
For instance, the permissive parent, the parent that loves to please the child, does what the child says.
Everything.
How much in long term or in the long term effect does this affect that particular child, particularly for the permissive parent?
Now, a child who has grown under permissive parent will grow up believing that everybody, owes them. It can bring a lot of entitlement, and we know, you and I know, that the world out here is not going to give you all the things you think you should have. The world is not that fair. Some children have learned their parents, and they know that I only need to roll on the ground, I only need to cry, and I'll get everything.
Get it, yeah.
Now, outside here is not the same. You will go to campus someday, you will go to the job place someday,
Yeah.
and even on the road, as simple as public transport, the world does not owe you anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes these kind of children are not adjusted well, and therefore surviving with others, forming stable relationships can be hard for this kind of people, because you will expect everybody to hand over things to you the same way your parents used to do. Yes. When we talk of authoritarian or dictatorial parent, those children grow up sometimes when their self-esteem is eroded. They are being shouted down. They are not allowed to say anything. So sometimes taking initiative might be hard for them. Making decisions might be hard for them, because communication has always been from the parent, and the parent is not being questioned. I say do it because I have said so. So sometimes to make their own decisions as adults might be hard for them long term.
Yeah.
And they may also grow up fearing. I've seen dealing with children. I've seen some children, you call their name, like I call your name Cynthia, they cower because they think they are going to be beaten.
Oh yes, yes.
So it also has that kind of effect. Neglectful children generally will not even have the needs. Let's say parents have left you alone, parents are drunkards, parents are depressed, so this will not even meet basic needs.
Yes.
So they are growing up under the environment of lack, growing up under environment of uncertainty. They do not know what's happening next. It affects how they form relationships. It can have mental issues like depression long term. Yes.
Yeah. And I know that you've stated that eventually with time the parenting style will change. Perhaps you have a 1-year-old, at that point you're a bit permissive, this is a 1-year-old, they cry, they want this and that. But eventually perhaps to teenage years you have to either be authoritative or authoritarian. So if you're looking at that point where you have now to change as a parent and say, okay, I will not give my child everything they're asking for. I need to now be authoritative. What are some of the things as a parent that now need to change? How do they start thinking at that point?
I don't even think that you will have to wait for a particular age. Even right now, as the child is 1-year-old, 2-year-old, one time you are going to allow them. Let's say a child is sick. At that time, you can allow them to have their way, okay? Because you are handling.
They're sick.
Yeah, they are sick.
Yeah.
But I gave example of crossing the road. It doesn't matter whether they are crying. You have to hold their hand. If you don't hold their hand, they will be knocked down by a vehicle.
Yeah.
So I think it is something that the most important thing is be aware as a parent. Be aware, because these are the things I want my child to have. I want my child to be a disciplined child, a responsible child. So you adjust accordingly. But whatever the case, it is important to listen to the child, especially as they grow up, because they are also having their mind. They also have they are also seeing their surrounding. These things they want. So within reason, we are not saying that deny the child everything they need, but within reason, listen to the child. A child is a human being with a mind of their own, So listen to them.
Yeah.
And within reason, grant what they need within reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the unresponsive parents, could be various issues involved.
Yeah.
One, perhaps the parent is into drugs, or two, is just neglectful. What we hear is, my parents work all the time.
Yeah.
And so this child is so much used to an environment where They can grow independent sometimes, just doing things on their own or feel neglectful. So for this kind of parenting, it can be so difficult, particularly for the child, to try and now reassure them that, you know, I am your parent. This is what happened at that point. I made mistakes, or perhaps if they don't realize it. But how much for the unresponsive parent can they now turn things around? How difficult is it for them to turn things around and now start actually being present in their child's life?
Okay, if say the reason is maybe job, it could be easy for a parent to mend these ways. But you see, if we talk of issues like drunkenness, we talk of issues like sickness, mental illness, depression, such like things, then you see intervention might maybe external, maybe someone else might need to step up. You know, and that is why some maybe developed countries, they have those systems where a child can be put in the government system. You know? But it is important, even if parents are busy looking for money, it is important for parents to be available for their children. It is really that important. I know many parents think by buying for the child everything they need, they are filling the gap. But a child really needs direction, by the way. Because I have learned that a child will learn a lot by modeling, by seeing than what they are really being told. So if the child is used to parents not being there, it already starts to affect the way they think.
All right. So when we began the show, I said I read somewhere that someone says, you know, good parents have the most difficult time in raising their child, which begs the question, does that mean bad parents have an easy time? And if so, is there something like good parenting and bad parenting?
That's very difficult to answer, but fine. Yes, we have good parents and bad parents. Now, at the end of the day does the child get their needs? Okay. There are these basic needs that every parent needs to provide to their child. Now, maybe my definition would be, are you able to provide to the child all that they require as a child? And this include parenting them. This include being there for them, you know. So as to good parents finding it hard, yes, to get good result you have to put in some work. To get to have a well-adjusted child, you have to be there. You have to be there. Apart from providing the resource bit, you also have to be there as a person. Be present in their special days. Be present when you are required. Be present when they are unwell. You know.
So does that mean that we're not allowed to put tags on people and say, you know, you're a good parent and you're a bad parent?
Well, putting tags is not good, but the truth is they are bad parents.
Okay.
So if you are not providing for your children what they need, then it will be hard to call you a good parent.
But it's more than just like, you know, provision of basic needs, you know?
Exactly. This is what I've said. We said the resources is there, okay? Basic needs, schooling, food, whatever. And then also being available for the child to see. Because the way a boy will be a father is how they saw their father, you know. That is how they will turn out to be a father, because that is their first reference point. The way a girl will be a mother is how they saw their mother, you know. So be there. That is part of what is required of a parent, you know, being available.
Okay. Now, you've talked of age, or rather not age, but gender, which is quite interesting, because how a girl will be raised is not how a boy will be raised. Where there could be similarities here and there in characters, but eventually they are raised differently. Girls or ladies are raised to be women, are raised to be mothers, you know, in the society. Men are raised to be providers, and so most of the time you'll hear them say, you know, they have been raised around very harsh parents. So with effective parenting, does gender also play a role on how good of a parent you are?
I wouldn't say so, because, you know, okay, I know there are different gender roles, but when it comes to being a parent, all children, wherever they are, irrespective of color, background, all children need their parents. And that is why you find many children with an absent parent or with the two parents absent, they face challenges. They face challenges. Not only in getting their basic needs, but even in the way they are formed, unless somebody else really steps in. Now, you mentioned how people were brought up in the African culture.
Yes.
Which is very important. By the way, African culture was so good in that there was really not a vacuum. There was no vacuum. Because even if a parent died, the uncles were there, the aunties were there. But now that we live in towns, we don't live with our immediate families, that might be a bit challenging. You know, people don't live with their people. And in town, you might not even know your neighbors. Yeah, so, but I don't think that gender is that a big deal. There are small differences when it comes to roles, but when it comes to the need of a child, every child needs a parent. You know, they need to be parented.
So what we hear when people say, you know, mimi ni mzazi wa mtoto kijana, which means, you know, they have to be a bit more, perhaps, you know, vindictive. And we've also had mimi mzazi wa mtoto msichana. They're so harsh, you know, my child shouldn't go outside, shouldn't meet certain people. So putting those such statements on parenting makes it all wrong. It should just be an equal task, shouldn't it?
It's just parenting. There are roles, yes, but at the end of the day, it is just parenting. It is just parenting. You need to teach your boy to be responsible, to respect women, you know. You need to teach your girl to respect herself. And as we are realizing today, you know, the roles are almost the same. Women are going to work the same way as men. So all you need is good parenting. You need to be a good, responsible person. You know.
And I love that you insist on responsibility, because that is where it all starts. If you have a responsible dad, a responsible mom who is so much present, well, you can call them almost perfect parents. But the problem now is there such thing as perfect parenting? You know, no flaws. Mommy is so good. I never see wrong with what mommy does. I never see anything wrong with what daddy does. Is there anything like perfect parenting?
No, that is not possible to achieve. We are all human beings. You can try to provide most of the things, okay? You can try to be the best your child needs. But at the end of the day, the people your child will meet out there might not be exactly like you. You know, we have to realize also that our personalities are different. Our cultures are different. By the way you become a parent, the way I become a parent depends on how I was parented also. So you can't say that one parent has it all, but any parent can be the best for their child. You know, you can be the best for your child. You can provide maybe 95% to your child. And remember, the child we are talking about is also an individual with their own mind, with their own emotions. So you can do your part, but at the end of the day, they are also they have their own identity. So they will also turn out the way.
Okay. And now there's also the issue on just questions that parents need to ask themselves to be better parents. It is possible that you're a parent to one child, or two children, and on forth. And so how you raised your first child might be different from how you raised the second child. You might want to do better. Maybe there's things you did the first time that weren't okay, you want to do better. Or alternatively, you did quite okay with the first child, but the second child doesn't turn out as much as you would have wanted him or her to turn out. So what are some of the things that parents need to prepare themselves for and say, okay, I need to ask myself this, or these are the things I need to do for me to be a better parent to my second child, to my third child, or to be a better parent eventually to this first child who is turning, you know, as a teenager in a few weeks or a few months. What do they need to prepare themselves psychologically to be better parents?
Okay, before I answer that, by the way, the way parenting is done to first child, second child, and third child is always different. They turn out different. In fact, you have heard these sayings that the last borns are spoiled, you know. Now, the first child, for people who are married normally, you know, you have finished school, you have gone to college, you have dated, you have entered marriage intentionally, not a child who came by accident, okay? You find that the parent is very ready, okay?
For the first child.
Psychologically ready, they are available, you know. Responsibilities have not increased much.
Yeah.
You know, I'm assuming this a person even at the workplace, they have not entered management level. So they, after 4 or 5, they come home, you know. So they give a lot of attention to these children. They give a lot of attention to these children. And that is why if you check generally over all the people you know, you'll find that firstborns, except in very few cases, most firstborns are responsible. In fact, they are deputy parents.
Yeah, I've had that tag before.
Yes.
Deputy parents.
They are deputy parents because parents gave them all, their all. Okay? Now, the second-born, the firstborn will be expected to cover the second-born.
The second child. Okay.
Yes, will be expected to cover the second child. So sometimes they are in between there. But most of the times, the last-born, I'm assuming a family of 3 or a family of 5, most of the time the last-born, they find that the parents are now a bit busy. They have also seen it all. It doesn't surprise them.
Okay.
Yeah, so for many parents, you'll find that the last-born, they are permitted to have their way. They get their way. That's why most of them are spoiled. Most of them, okay, I'm not saying that this is not the rule, but most of them, a majority of them, are usually not very responsible. Yeah. After all, their elder siblings are working for them. They are the baby of the house. Sometimes they come.
Provided for.
Yeah, sometimes they come when now the parents have worked, the resources are there. There is the house manager to take care of all the roles. So you'll find most of them don't even know how to wash their own clothes. Especially if the parent was a permissive parent. They can grow up very responsible. And that's not the rule anyway. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm saying you will find those features. Now, what should a parent prepare for? You know, when you are going to give birth, you should have it in your mind that giving birth is not the end of it. There is the parenting bit.
The big journey ahead.
Yes. So you should be psychologically prepared to do your parental duty. You know, you should know it and feature it somewhere that, okay, I'll be leaving work at this time, and I must give my child this kind of time. It has to be something you deliberately plan about. Don't just assume that, okay, after I've given birth, after all, I can employ a house girl
who will take care of the child.
Yeah, to do the job for me. No, you have to be psychologically prepared, and you have to know that it is a long-term thing. Parenting is long-term. It's not just ending with the pregnancy. Even after giving birth, even after providing, you have to be around, you know, to their emotional needs. So be prepared. Know that it is something that is going to require your time. Yeah.
And you know, you've mentioned quite an important point, because we, as people that, you know, are adults, we prepare so much for pregnancy, and we forget to prepare for the parenting journey ahead, such that after the pregnancy is when you hear people talk of, you know, a lot of stress now around raising this particular child, and it needs team effort, doesn't it, from both the father and the mother when it comes to raising this child. But the point really is about preparing for the long-term project, which is now the parenting part, isn't it?
You should prepare for it. Don't just assume. By the way, there is this thing called postpartum depression. Yeah. Because many times people don't think it ahead. And suddenly you discover after giving birth that the child is crying so much. You discover that you have to wake so many times in the night. You discover that you have to do a lot of work, which you are not used to doing when you are single. So parents need to think through parenting. Just think through it. Don't just assume that it is just biological. I get pregnant, I give birth, and it is done. Be prepared for it. Speak to people who have been parents before. You know, read books about parenting, read books about bringing up a child, so that it doesn't catch you by surprise. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where psychology comes in, doesn't it?
Of course. But but there are also channels, you know, like talking to someone who has been a parent before, you know. There are groups where you can find people who have new mothers, people who have been mothers before. At least they can prepare you psychologically, you know. That is why it is not so advisable to just be alone, you know, and you discover when you have given birth that there are so many things you didn't think about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I'd love to take a different angle now on parenting, because it's not just Cynthia as the mom raising the child. There's also the father. And so it's two people in that particular house, the mother and the father, that are raising this particular child. How I want this child to be raised could be different from how my spouse or my partner wants this child to be raised. There are things I want the child to do. He feels, no, you know, it shouldn't be that way. Or there are things he wants that child to do. I feel like, no, it shouldn't be that way. So let's now talk about the scenario where it's now two people in this particular household, who we are now calling the parents. How are now they supposed to do the co-parenting in terms of, you know, what characters do we want our child to have, as well as what are some of the things we can agree on and things that we cannot, we should disagree on. So talk about this scenario now, when it's now two people raising this particular child.
Like I said before, preparation. Talk through it, you know, talk about it before. Don't wait until things are late, you know. The same way as marriage. And talk before. Don't say that, okay, because you can have it in your mind that I will have 4 children, and he has it in his mind that he wants 1 child. You know, so speak before about it. So you are already expecting a child. Here you are with your spouse. It is good to agree. How do we want to bring up our child? You know, and then considering your timings, you can agree that maybe when the father is at work, maybe the mother can be, so that you alternate your times, you know, so that everybody is available. Because some jobs, you realize also some jobs keep one parent away for far too long. So when you agree the things you expect, you will even then discuss, then okay, I'm busy because of my job, but I'll be making time maybe on weekend or this kind of time. It is good to just agree, to speak about it. Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that even if we prepare for this parenting, that we aren't going to disagree on certain issues eventually, does it?
Of course, life is dynamic. Life is never on a straight line. But as long as you are working on them every day, you are working on, because no matter how much you prepare, we are talking about a person.
A
child is a person. Yes, a human being. So you are going to realize that, okay, I had planned that maybe I should train them this way, but now I have to do this way. So you have to be ready for those changes as they come. And as your child is growing up, by the way, you will discover, maybe you are the parent who is very outgoing. You discover your child is growing up to be a very
introvert.
Yes, an introvert person. So you will adjust every day how you are dealing with your child. Yeah.
So it's about adjustment.
Yes.
Okay, so there's also a scenario where we're having two people that it didn't work out, so they got divorced, went their separate ways, but they have a child together. Now they're co-parenting. This, you know, can be so difficult because if we separate, the other person could move on to a different relationship, but we have a child together. So now, are there rules around co-parenting first? We need to understand, are there rules around co-parenting?
Yes, you will have to agree. Okay, Makiu, you know, when people are living together, and the instances I've seen cases of divorce, first of all, divorce is very painful. Or separation, very painful. And it comes with a lot of complications. Here is a child who was used to seeing 2 parents. Now they are going to see 1 parent. And then suddenly, in a case where maybe 1 parent remarries, they are going to see another parent they have not been used to. So it means if you are to continue parenting, it means that there has to be some rules. You will agree, you will sit down, you will agree how many days will the father have the children, how many days will the mother have the children. Or in some cases, if 1 parent is going to be cut off, you know, you have to psychologically prepare the children for this. Because, you know, the spouse might be wrong for you, I say every day, but to the child, they are still going to remain a parent. You know, so you have to talk. You have to talk. And by the way, I'd advise any couple that separates, please seek help. Seek help so that you are able to navigate the changes. Because the changes have a lot of effect on children. People assume it is just about me and the person I'm married to, not knowing that children are also here. And children need their mother or their father.
And their father. Okay, so with parenting also, it has its own fair share of challenges. Let's just not talk about the financial part, because as you've said, it can be dynamic. We'll have money today, tomorrow one parent has lost the job, it's just the other that is now doing all the work. So aside from the financial challenges that may come with being parents, what are some of these psychological factors that play a hand in just where parents are having it quite rough in raising their child, whether it's, a problem with the partners or a problem with the child? What are the challenges?
Yeah, there are issues of time, issues of time. There are, where maybe one parent is overworking. There are some jobs where somebody has to be away for very long hours. I always look at people, airlines, people work in airlines. Assume it is the mother now. So many hours away, So those issues, creating time, creating time would be a challenge. We also have a new phenomenon we are experiencing in our nation where people marry across cultures. Okay. So across cultures, a parent might struggle with the way maybe their spouse wants the child to be brought up. Especially if you didn't talk about it before. Where this community believe a child should be treated this way, a child should be done this, and the other person may not be understanding. And that's why I say it's always good to think through it before you do it. Before you marry, before you have a child, think through it, discuss all these things. You can get help so that you look ahead. But otherwise, many times people just discover they are already inside it. Okay, third reason, the same parenting styles we talked about. We have one parent who is overly permissive, and another parent is maybe authoritarian. There is going to be conflict in how these people are bringing this child, because the child will also study them very, very fast. Child will know, if I want to get my way, I need to go to daddy. For example. And so in between, especially as they continue to grow, it can come up with other challenges, like a child having to lie, because they know one parent will say yes, another parent will say no. So those are some of the things, some of the challenges parents might meet,
Okay, so I'd love us to take a quick break, but when we come back, I'd love us to talk about the third party, which is the society, because in Swahili they say, not in Swahili, I don't know if it's Swahili or English, that a child belongs to the community.
The whole community, yes.
So this third party that is the community, I'd love us to talk about it when you come back after the break. And so you can send in your feedback, thoughts, comments, perhaps questions that you might have concerning effective parenting. If you feel there's there's a need that you'd love Vic here to address, kindly send us your questions and we'll be able to answer them after the break. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
In a fast-paced world filled with distractions, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters: your relationship with God. Every Tuesday and Thursday, we take you on a transformative journey of building your faith, without which it's impossible to please God. A journey of introspection and discovery of who you are in Christ Jesus.
For you to walk with God, you should not crumble when you come under pressure. Sema umeokoka, sema umeokoka mpaka mbele ya president, mpaka mbele ya chief justice, mpaka mbele ya kila mtu. Hiyo ndio kuokoka ya ukweli. Kuokoka ya ukweli.
Enjoy a faith-filled environment of worship and ministry of the word every Tuesday and Thursdays from 9 a.m. with Reverend Felix Kevoy, exclusively on EBN TV.
Through the morning rush and the buzz, find a voice you can trust, a voice of reason, a voice of direction, and a voice of hope.
Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Live. I'm Cynthia Nanjala.
And I'm Sammy Adika. Rise and shine, folks. We hope you are ready for an energizing start to your day.
Absolutely. We are here to bring you the latest headlines and trending news stories from the world of politics,
business and finance, health and lifestyle,
agriculture and sports.
So grab your coffee, sit back and get ready for a fantastic morning of engaging discussions and news segments.
Join us through our social media handles, #The Morning Live. This is Morning Live, exclusively on EBN TV. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with Morning Live. The conversation continues on effective parenting. My guest is here, Vic Otieno, a counseling psychologist. Now, before the break, I touched on the third parent, who is the community. We normally say one child belongs to the community, our children belong to the community. So apart from the parents who are at home, that is the father and the mother who are raising the child, there's also now those people around. Could be the aunties, the uncles, the neighbors as well, who actually, are really the key people in this conversation. So if we can talk about this third parent, who is now the community, the neighbors I'm talking about, how much also do they play a role on just effective parenting?
Actually, they play a very important role. There's a part you have not mentioned, the school.
Yeah, the school. Yeah.
They play a very, very important role. Example, we have our children who knows a foreign language. I mean, a language of another tribe, which the parent don't know.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, like I mentioned to you, I lived in Uganda. My children learned Luganda, I never learned. Because they were playing with their colleagues. I was ever in the office, so I never got to learn the language.
Yeah.
So community is very, very important. That is why I know it is hard, but it is important to choose where you settle. I know it is hard because there are issues involved like finances and all that, but it is important because there are certain behaviors which are prevalent in particular communities, An estate where almost every child is abusing drugs, an estate where children are fighting, and the same to schools. You should think of the well-being of the child, apart from the academics, the well-being of the child in whichever school you enroll them in, because they will, no matter whether you like it or not, they will spend a lot of time in the school. A lot of time in the school. So does the school provide that environment of, you are good at home, you are setting rules, you are being authoritative, you are listening to the needs, you are providing the needs, but what about the teacher? Is the teacher also a person who is listening? A person who is able to enforce rules, So think about it because it is that important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've talked about how important this community is, including the school, including the neighbors, but there has to be a line, to which we can say, okay, yes, you are my neighbor, but this is where I draw the line. You should not cross to this other point in terms of dealing with my child, leave that to me, as well as for the school, because we've looked at situations or scenarios where while disciplining the child, the teachers overdo it, and this child is injured, and they say, the child did this, something that, as a parent, which is your work to discipline, as much as it is the teachers, but there has to be a line crossed, isn't it?
Exactly. The safety of the child is paramount. The safety of your child is very, very important. That is why you will not allow everybody to discipline your child. Okay? And unfortunately in Africa, we associate discipline with beating.
Unfortunately, yes.
We associate it with beating. So, yes, for the security of your child, you have to set boundaries. You have to set boundaries. However, there must be a balance. You also need to teach your child to honor adults. Some of us, when we grew up, at least an adult could tell you, hey, what you are doing is wrong, and you would listen. Today, unfortunately, on the extreme side, there are those people who can hurt children, but there are also children who cannot listen to anyone.
Other than their parents.
Which is also sometimes on the extreme and can lead to negative consequences. Yes, so for the security of your child, set rules by any means. Even teachers, some teachers are also dealing with issues. They are not trained to beat, they are not trained to hurt children, but teachers are also human beings. And our schools do not take care of mental health needs of teachers. That is why you'll find a teacher may be beating a child to a point of hurting them. Yeah, so it's important to think about the security of the child.
Yeah. If we can contextualize it a bit to the local context, when you talk about the environment where the child is in matters, in your head, what sort of environment are we picturing here?
Environment where children are disciplined, environment where children are taught responsibility, children are responsible. I'd say the same in school. At least they are teaching a child to be responsible. They are taking care of the needs of the child, yes, but they are also teaching them to be responsible. You can be an authoritative parent at home, a responsible parent, but then the environment, because no matter how observant you are, a child will have to play with their peers outside. They will have to play with their peers in school. So think about it, so that the environment is not undoing what you are doing in the house. That is why you have to think about it. Yeah.
Okay. So when we started the conversation, Vic, we talked about ineffective parenting. And we've talked so much about effective parenting.
Yes.
A responsible parent, someone that is able to cater to the needs of the child, not just financially, but also psychologically, mentally, socially, and all that. But then the ineffective parenting, as well also is scenarios that we see or circumstances that we see here and there with various children just around us.
Yeah.
At what point do we say, no, this is ineffective parenting? No, this is somebody whose parent has perhaps neglected them or is too dictatorial and the child is scared. At what point now do we say that?
Look at the behavior of the child. When you see the child who is out of control, the child who is, their self-esteem is eroded, a child who is afraid, a child who does not have confidence, then you know that the parent has not done some good work. It will manifest on the way the child will behave. Well-adjusted child will be confident, will be respectful, will be responsible. The opposite is true of an ineffective parent. When parenting was not done effectively, it will manifest even in mental health, by the way. A child who has been abused, because they have grown up seeing abuse, they also abuse others. Abused people abuse others, unless they are healed. Yeah.
So how do we undo the ineffective part?
Let parents think through parenting. And parenting is not one day thing. It cannot just be solved by throwing in money and disappearing. No. Think through it. It's a commitment. The same way we are committed to our jobs, we are committed to our careers, we must be committed to our children. If you have brought a child in this world, you must be committed to making sure that they turn out the way you have planned.
So there's a question here I'd love you to answer. Alice Njeri asks, does FaceTime, or what we call video calling, count for parents who are busy or are working abroad?
Yeah, technology is important in bridging the gap. Technology is very, very important. Like I mentioned, there are careers that someone has to be away, no matter how they want to be involved. We have doctors on call, you know. Now, technology can help bridge the gap. Technology can help bridge the gap as long as they are with a responsible person, and also when you can, you get to see them. Yes, you can FaceTime, you can talk to them. This works even people who are dating. As long as the communication is kept, there will be a relationship going on.
So it fulfills the emotional needs of the child.
Yes, yeah. If technology helps us to bridge that gap. You know, compare this scenario. You have a parent who you take one whole year to see, and you have a parent that you speak to almost every day, even if only for a few minutes. At least they know, hey, today where is Cynthia? You know, have you done your homework? You know, it helps to bridge the gap. I'm not saying that it substitutes, but it helps.
It helps in bridging, but it's not the ultimate solution.
Yeah.
All right. So I'd love to give you an opportunity to wrap this conversation up for us, because it is so unfortunate that the society will just have the two types of parents, the effective one and the ineffective one. It has to be in the society. But we can always undo the ineffective one, as you've said, and make it very effective, because it's not just about the parent, but it's also about the child. Eventually, this person will be an adult, and eventually they'll also have their own family. So whatever starts from the initial parent or grandparent will go all the way to the generations. So I'd love you to wind it up and speak to those who are parents, how they can do better, but also those who are not parents just yet, and they're looking forward to being parents. What can they need, or what are the conversations do they need to have to be better? Go ahead.
So this is what I'll say. Think about parenting very, very deeply before you bring a child into the world. Think about it. You know, when you're getting a new job, you have to figure out, where will I be living, how much money will I be spending on transport, how much time will I be spending on the road, which time will I be expected to reach the office. We think about them when it comes to our job. When we are registering for a new course, we think about it. Now think about parenting that way. What kind of person do I want to bring up? What kind of man or woman do I want to bring up as my child? Think about it. Think through it. If you need help, seek help. Talk to other parents who have done it. Talk to other parents who are doing it. Seek for advice, you know. Even if it means looking for professional help, look for it. But do not just give birth to a child, you know, like an accident, because it is not an accident. Think about it. And parenting does not end with provision. Provision is important, is beautiful, but parenting is long term. So think that way. That will even determine, okay, do I want this number of children? You know, which kind of estate do I need to live in? Okay, where will I be taking this child to school? When you think that deep, then I believe you'll have a good starting point to being a parent.
All right, thank you so much, Vic Oteno, a counseling psychologist who has been here this morning to help us talk more about effective parenting. I hope that you've been able to learn something from it. I have. It's all about talking through or thinking through, you know, what sort of parent do you want to be eventually? Because what you do with your child is what your child will do with their child. So it's a question of what do you need to do, what sort of parent do you want to be, as well as also note that it is a long-term project, long-term journey. You cannot give birth to a child and say, no, I'm not a parent. The moment, actually from the point of conception, that is where it all starts. So I hope that you've been able to learn something on the effective parenting. For the comments or questions that have been coming in, thank you so much. And that is where we want to wrap the broadcast this morning. You have been watching Morning Live with me, Cynthia Nanjala. See you tomorrow, same time, same place. Do enjoy the rest of your programming, as well as do watch our subsequent news bulletins throughout the day. Have a good morning.